Welcome back to the Dude You Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 56. That is the laughter of Sam Franco. He is joining us for the first time on the Dude You Podcast. Today we're going to talk something that has never happened over the life of Dude You Crazy. We have World Cup soccer to discuss. So joining me is Jason Smith, our resident soccer analyst on DudeYouCrazy.net, found on the Twitters at Jason is a Smith. Jason, how goes it?
It's going pretty well. I would like to think that today is a great day in my career at Dude You Crazy and that I'm making this happen. Somehow, by sheer force of will, I'm getting a Georgia sports blog to talk about soccer. I think it's a pretty big accomplishment if I'm just tooting my own horn here.
Well, to be fair, you piqued my interest because you had a pretty exciting Saturday. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so me and my wife drove down from Nashville to Jacksonville to go to the USA versus Nigeria game. And I actually was up watching the United States versus Turkey, and the whole time I was rooting for Josie Altidore to break his scoring drought, but at the same time there was a part of me that was hoping that maybe it would be that he would hold off until we got to see him right before the World Cup to score. And sure enough, he put in the first one on the far end, so everybody went crazy, but I was kind of reserved because I wasn't actually sure that it was him. And once I figured out it was him, much more celebration. But it's really hard to see, by the way. And one other reason that I just despise Jacksonville, I'm a Georgia fan, so I have plenty of reason to hate Jacksonville. But the main reason that I hate Jacksonville is most everything doesn't work there. And in this case, it was that the PA system was completely non-functional for the end zone sections. So we could not hear anything. So I had no idea who scored any goals. I had no idea who was subbed in the 60th and 70th minute. I had no idea that Chris Wondolowski had come onto the field until like after the match almost. I had no idea that Alejandro Bedoya was starting the game until I watched the highlights once I left because the PA announcer was non-existent.
And that is a great segue to our other guest here. We have a friend of the podcast, a personal friend of mine, Sam Franco, PA announcer extraordinaire, found on Twitter at Sam J. Franco, if I'm not mistaken. Sam, how goes it, man?
Hey, man, it's going pretty good. You know, I wish I had gone down to Jacksonville. Unfortunately, I got a lot of trips coming up, so it's kind of one of those things where I had to save the money. But, it was a great performance from Team USA down there. They've looked pretty good overall in their warm-ups. There have been some speed bumps, but I think that this team going forward, especially with some of the news that's come out of the Germany camp and the Portugal camps, anything's possible with this team. They thrive in that underdog role, and I think that they could be pretty maybe surprise some folks come Brazil.
And I have no insight. I just know that Germany and Portugal are two very good teams and that Ghana is a very fast team that's given the U.S. fits before. But we're going to discuss that on our next soccer podcast because Jason actually leveraged his weight and got 2 soccer podcasts out of this. Yes. So, again, Jason really done some work here. So, fellas, this is kind of the laid-back, what do American casual to not really at all soccer fans watch? I'm facilitating because that's exactly somewhere in that boat is where I fall. Starting out, who are some of the top players currently to watch? I'm assuming Zinedine Zidane is retired and no longer headbutting Italians, and that just ruins it for me right off the bat. So,
yeah, Zidane is actually assistant coach on Real Madrid right now, so he's still around. You can still catch him from time to time on a broadcast sitting on the bench, but unfortunately, he's not giving anybody the Zangief headbutt anymore.
Well, Sam, while we got you, who are 3 players that we should watch, and really, what should we watch them for if you're a casual fan wanting to watch some explosive play?
All right, yeah, no question about it. First of all, obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo has had one heck of a season, winning the Champions League with Real Madrid, also hoisting the Copa del Rey there in Spain. Just had a phenomenal season, set the Champions League goal-scoring record, has a flair, has a pizzazz kind of that many casual soccer fans would enjoy watching. The ball's glued to his feet constantly, and he can unleash shots from distance. So, I mean, that's definitely somebody you got to look for. Lionel Messi's another guy for Argentina. I'm kind of going a little obvious with some of these, but, he's another guy who the ball is just constantly glued to his feet. You can't really take him down because he'll just hop over your step-ins, and then he'll just unleash just vicious shots of his own. And a guy that might be a little off the books a little bit that most people might not think of when you think of like these World Cup All-Star players. I'm going to go with somebody for Belgium, a guy named Eden Hazard. He plays his club soccer for Chelsea, and he's another guy who, and I don't even like Chelsea, but he's a guy who you just love to watch. Kind of a midfield maestro, orchestrates everything in the middle of the field. He can find that pass. He's got great vision, but he can also unleash some wicked shots of his own. So Belgium is a team, and if Eden Hazard and their guys are really going, that they possibly could lift the whole trophy when the thing's said and done. He is an unbelievable player, and Belgium actually have a really solid squad. So Eden Hazard would probably be my third guy to watch at the World Cup.
And Smith, I'm going to direct the same question to you. No repeats there.
Yeah, no, obviously. And I'll go to another team that Sam doesn't like very much as a Man United fan, to Liverpool, my team, and say you got to watch for Luis Suarez. I think Suarez right now is honestly, to me, is the best goal scorer in the world. And I think with the type of teams that he has in this group, with England, he's going to have to face off against Italy at one point, and Costa Rica, who's really nothing to play around with. I think watching him do just ridiculous things with the ball will be, if you want to watch a guy that's going to score goals that kind of make you drop your jaw, Suarez is a guy to watch. I think going beyond that, you have a couple other people. I think going back to Argentina, Sergio Aguero is probably the other striker for Argentina, is probably going to get a lot more play because so many teams are going to devote so much of their attention to Lionel Messi. And so for the casual soccer fan, if you're watching Argentina and you're looking for Messi to score goals, don't be disappointed. Just know that there's this other guy named Sergio Aguero who plays for Manchester City who will probably dominate quite a bit in that group because that group is not very heavy. Now, on the other side, on the far side, going away from Argentina, let's go to Africa and talk about Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast has one of the more sneakily loaded teams in this World Cup, and they're my dark horse to win it. Just go ahead and, dropping a little tease there on what's coming later in the podcast. Nice. But the guy to watch there is not even a striker, he's a midfielder named Yaya Toure, which is by far the most fun name to say at this World Cup. Yaya Toure is one of the most incredible players in the world right now at doing what he does, which is basically, if you get him the ball anywhere even remotely around the box, just hold your breath and wait for this guy to shoot, because this guy on that and on free kicks is pretty much one of the more deadly players in the world. So that guy can definitely produce things where if you're just the casual fan and you're looking for a team to root for and you want to watch some amazing goal scoring happen, tune into an Ivory Coast game and look out for Toure.
And we're just having great luck with segues, because the next question I was going to ask were what were some of the teams and matchups to watch, and the one that I had highlighted was actually the Ivory Coast, because really, in my infinite soccer wisdom, I know that when I play international friendlies against people, I use Ivory Coast because they're so blazing fast. What other teams and matchups are y'all looking forward to here in the group stage?
Well, I think Spain-Netherlands is a very savory matchup early on. It's a rematch of the final from last year, or last World Cup, rather. Netherlands is a little kind of in flux right now. They've got, some of the guys that were on that team in 2010. You look at Arjen Robben, you look at Robin van Persie, Wesley Sneijder. Those guys are still there. But in the defense, they've lost a lot of guys. And also in the heart of their midfield, they don't have those same guys that were there. So that's going to be a little tough for the Netherlands. But that's a really good matchup early on. I think that Jason kind of alluded to it a little bit, that England and Uruguay matchup early on is also going to be really good, because you look at England right now, and they're in transition. They've got a lot of good young players. They were hung up on their quote-unquote golden generation for so long that didn't really deliver anything for them.
Is that Rooney and Beckham in them?
Yeah, Rooney, Beckham, Lampard, Paul Scholes, those guys. But they never delivered. I think this England team can deliver, because they play much like a lot of the other dominant attacking teams on the planet right now, with a guy like Raheem Sterling from Liverpool, who, if Roy Hodgson is smart, which a lot of people have questioned, Roy Hodgson being the English manager, he'll play Raheem Sterling.
Yes.
Because Raheem Sterling terrorized the Premier League this year, just running up and down that flank. And Daniel Sturridge, also another guy up top as a striker, him and Sterling give England weapons and speed that they've never really had before.
Fun trash talking fact, all three of those players are from Liverpool.
This is true. But no, I really like what Liverpool's been able to do. I mean, they've got a lot of good young talent right now. Just unfortunately, Crystal Palace gave him a little hiccup, but
Yeah, there's the dagger I was looking for right there.
Hey, I gotta deliver it when I
Okay.
can.
Oh, I got you. Now go do it. I'll give you a couple the matchups that I think you need to watch in this World Cup. Honestly, and this is me kind of requoting my piece on Do You Crazy, but I'm serious about it. Anything from Group G. And it's not just because America's in this group. This group is the most intriguing and the most interesting group throughout the whole World Cup. Like, there's not a group that's going to offer the kind of drama, the kind of closeness to where you look at this group and literally Ghana could win this group tomorrow. Like, if we started the World Cup tomorrow, we could wake up and somehow, miraculously, Ghana, America, anyone can win this group. And it features probably the biggest pool of recognizable players to the casual soccer fan. So you're going to know a lot of American players. You're going to know people from Germany. You're going to know Cristiano Ronaldo. You're going to need to watch them play, and then every game in that group is going to be so significant because there's always an international power that falls flat on its face at the World Cup. It's going to happen every year. And this year, I think Germany or Portugal might both advance, or one of them might go home, and that would be a huge story. Getting out of that group, I think the little bit of drama to watch will be anything that when Bosnia plays Argentina. I think everyone thinks that Argentina is going to walk through this pool like nobody's business.
Not so fast.
Yeah, Bosnia.
That one didn't look very intriguing to me. I was just skipping over that one. So let's hear about it because I want to be proven wrong.
Bosnia is I said this about Ivory Coast too. Bosnia is another sneaky good team in this World Cup because they have a guy named Edin Dzeko who plays for Manchester City who is an absolute terror to defenses everywhere. And mostly part of the reason I say they're so dangerous is because this is their first time being in a World Cup in forever. And then secondly, it's that Argentina thinks that this pool is so easy. And because of that, imagine getting a really, really easy March Madness draw and how that always produces a bit of lethargy for these a bigger seed.
Like when Duke loses to a 14 or a 15 seed?
Exactly. When Duke goes down to Mercer, this is what you should think of. This is Bosnia right now. Bosnia is Mercer, okay, without the war-torn history. And so when Bosnia plays Argentina, I would not be surprised at all if Bosnia beats Argentina in the World Cup. It would be shocking still, but it's not something it's an upset that could happen. That's all I'm saying.
Well, to add a little bit of that, the problem that you have with Argentina is Lionel Messi plays so well within the Barcelona setup. I mean, that team is built around Messi and for his skills. Argentina's not the same way. The coaches in the past haven't catered to the way Messi plays, so he's kind of looked like the odd man out when playing for Argentina. So if that continues to happen, Bosnia could, not easily, but Bosnia could go in there and definitely take those points away from Argentina. I definitely agree with that.
So, Sam, as a person that's been to a World Cup before, as you have, with the fact that Argentina is a geographical rival of Brazil and the World Cup being played in Brazil, would that play a role at all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if there's an Argentina-Brazil final and you're not going to the games and you're in Brazil, hunker down. It's going to get pretty rough over there. But no, I think that Argentina has had trouble recently in World Cups. They haven't performed to their expectations, and so I think that you could definitely see it happening there, where Argentina and Brazil make it very far in this tournament, and Brazil. Let's put this into perspective. Brazil haven't lost a competitive game in Brazil in a long time. I believe the last one they lost was after they won the World Cup in 2002. They came home and played Paraguay in a friendly, and basically it was just a victory parade, and they didn't really care if they won or not. So, it's been over 12 years or around 12 years since they've lost a competitive matchup at home. So the Brazilian team is definitely going to be heavy favorites going in. I read an article on Nate Silver's 538.com the other day, and they've got Brazil as the 45.2% chance to win the World Cup.
Wow.
So in the next closest team was like Argentina with like 13%. So I mean, it's pretty heavy.
And just one more group I wanted to highlight. We never really went into it, but Group D with Uruguay, England, and Italy all being top 10 teams according to the FIFA rankings, and then Costa Rica, who I saw Costa Rica play once, so there's that. What are y'all's thoughts on what's going to happen there? Because Sam, I know you have a few connections to Uruguay there, and then Jason, you brought up the England team. So what do y'all think transpires in that one, and what should we watch for?
Well, I think it's going to be another one of those cases where a world power is going home early. You know, I mean, it's obvious there are 3 teams that are in the top 10. One of them is not going to make it out because only 2 teams can make it out. I think that part of the reason that a lot of people are projecting Uruguay to go out, and part of that has been because of Luis Suarez's health concerns. I think a lot of that is smoke and mirrors. I think Luis Suarez is going to play.
Oh yeah.
I think even if he doesn't, though, and this is what is so frustrating to me about a lot of this, punditry, is that even if Suarez doesn't play, Uruguay has probably one of the best strikers in the world in Edison Cavani, who's playing for PSG right now, which, for those of you guys who are casual soccer fans out there, that's the Paris team, the best Paris team. And then they also have great people in their midfield, most notably Diego Forlan, who is another great striker who plays for a Uruguayan club. But basically what I'm trying to say is Uruguay is pretty much loaded top to bottom. I think I picked England not to make it out of the group. I might go back on that later, but mostly because of the young people that Sam has mentioned. But then also with this Italy team, this is the kind of year where Italy's either going to come in and just absolutely embarrass itself, or they're going to come in and win the World Cup. This is part of why soccer is so much fun, is because there's so much unpredictability about the way the venue and the team chemistry are going to interact with one another, and the pressure to create a match where anything can happen.
Yeah, I'm mad at Italy right now, so I'm not picking them to go through. The reason I'm mad at them is because one of their all-time great players, who has had a rebirth recently, Francesco Totti, made himself available for selection, and Cesare Prandelli, the coach, just ignored him, which is ridiculous to me, because if you can have a player like that come in and play, I know he's older, he's like 38 years old, but he's playing so well right now. I mean, he's killing it for Roma, and you don't bring him, especially on a team that doesn't have a whole lot of World Cup experience, makes me scratch my head. And I will say I'm happy with Italy for not calling up Giuseppe Rossi, a.k.a. the traitor, as most Americans like to call him, because he was born in New Jersey but decided to play for Italy. But, we'll save that for another day. But, I think that England and Uruguay come out of this group. I just don't see Italy coming out. They're very inexperienced. Other than Andrea Pirlo in the midfield and Gigi Buffon in goal, none of these other players really have a bunch of World Cup experience, other than Daniela De Rossi getting a red card against USA in 2006 for throwing an elbow and busting open Brian McBride's face in a game I was at, by the way, that the USA should have won due to a goal that got called for the worst offsides I've ever seen in my life. And DeMarcus Beasley could have had his World Cup moment like Landon Donovan. But, like I said, I think England and Uruguay get out of this group. Uruguay is just one of those teams that's got it top to bottom. Another guy who's really good for them, Diego Godin, in the Champions League final, he basically kept Real Madrid scoreless for 90 minutes. I mean, it was him just making every single tackle and every single play, and eventually, their luck just ran out. But I really like Uruguay, and I think they can make a deep run in this tournament.
So shifting gears a little bit here, we're going to get a little bit more casual, because I promised that to our listeners at the very beginning. There is a phenomenon in World Cup soccer of just both extremely hot and extremely crazy fans. I think we can all agree that there will be plenty of attractive female fans coming from the South American nations that are being represented at the World Cup. What should we watch for on that? Because I know I'm tuning in to, well, the U.S. doesn't have any South American teams in their group, but I can imagine Portugal will also bring some honeys. Jason, I'm going to throw it to you first. What should we be looking for? I'm excited all of a sudden. I'm pumped.
I would say, obviously, any game, the dark horse of, first off, before we do this, just because I'll get in trouble with my wife if I don't mention this, there's an article out there called The 10 Ways to Not Be a Misogynist When Watching the World Cup. Let's just go ahead and drop that name out there to make sure that you know that we're doing this as being very funny and also at the same time very aware in the back of our minds of some of the more problematic things that happens when ESPN decides to do certain things with the camera during the World Cup viewing.
There's a yin and a yang.
That being said, yes, all of that being said, you want to make sure you watch games where the Netherlands are playing. I'm just going to say, make sure you do that. There was a famous incident in the World Cup a while back where Robbie Earle, who's a commentator for ESPN FC now, or actually no, he's a commentator for NBC SN during their Premier League coverage. Robbie Earle back in the day got a bunch of tickets, and I forget what World Cup this was at, and he gave them out to a Dutch beer company, and basically what the Dutch beer company did was put a ton of really hot women in lederhosen in his seats, and they continued to cut to where these people were. And Robbie Earle got in a lot of trouble over it, but most red-blooded American dudes that were watching this were like, God bless Robbie Earle. We appreciate all the work that you're doing. Make sure you're watching whenever the Netherlands play. That's all I'll say on that.
Funny thing about what he just mentioned is, Chad, we actually talked about that in one of our grad school classes.
That rang a bell to me.
That was the Bavaria Beer Company.
Yes, that.
Yeah, and I think they were ambush marketing Budweiser, who was none too happy about them being the exclusive beer of the World Cup. They did not like that very much. I'll go ahead and drop.
Now, if you want to talk about a conversation for another day, there it is.
I'm very sad that Sweden isn't in the World Cup because in 2006 I was at the England-Sweden game and I saw two Swedish women making out. So that was one thing to look at and look forward to there.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. But all the South American fan bases have talent. Uruguay. Colombia, obviously, Shakira should be sitting in the Colombia section at some of these games, so there's something for you there. She'll also be sitting and watching Spain play because her husband is Gerard Piqué, who plays for Spain. And Spain is also another one to look at in terms of the talent level. Obviously Brazil, obviously Argentina. I'll go off the books a little bit. Russia and Bosnia. Definitely, they've got the Eastern Bloc nations going there. So yeah, every nation's got good-looking women, man. Come on, it's the World Cup.
And God love them, but the cameramen will find them. By the way, from every nation.
This is true. There's probably a little too much consternation going on from my point of view because I figured the cameraman will probably do a pretty good job.
No, yes. There's a hot chick cameraman that his whole thing is to find beautiful people and put them on camera. Guaranteed.
No offense to the great nation of England, but don't watch England games if you're only watching for hot women in the crowd.
I would agree.
So, how about the crazy fans then? Because I know England has a reputation for that.
Okay.
Italy.
But here's the thing. There are two kinds of crazy here. Okay. There is the crazy of will riot / scream about everything that is ever going to happen during this game or the results of the game. And then there's just the whole other level of crazy, which I have to give to the nation of Ghana, because Ghana is famous for having witch doctors bewitch everything about their World Cup matchups. In 2010, there's a game, I think versus England, where either South Africa or Ghana are playing England, and there's a bird sitting on the back of the net, and it turned out that this bird was sent by a witch doctor to bewitch the opposing side, and literally the bird flew into the stadium, landed on the net, and sat there the whole game. Recently, a Ghanaian witch doctor has also claimed credit for the recent outbreak of injuries, little leg injuries to Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, this guy has claimed that he, through his voodoo, has actually caused these injuries to Ronaldo. So I'll say that you can always say that the European sides are the craziest as far as when England loses on penalties again, you'll have people absolutely throwing themselves from the stands. But trust me, there's a different kind of crazy in certain football fan bases, and that is a really good example of it.
I'm going Italy. I'm answering this question with Italy because those people are nuts. That there will be plenty of flares. That they will be banging the drums. And the thing about Italian fans is, although their superstar player right now is black, they do not like people of other colors. Unfortunately, there is a big racism issue in Italy in terms of just soccer players in general. Lots of monkey chants and the throwings of bananas. And it's funny because there were people at one of their training sessions like hollering racist, just terrible remarks at their best player. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. It's just unreal that happens. But Italy's got crazy fans. All the South American fans are nuts. I mean, in stadiums in Brazil and Argentina and even Ecuador, where my dad's from, they have like cages built up like so that the fans like can't get out onto the field or do crazy stuff. Like it's like almost like when you go to a game, you're in prison. It's unreal.
Greece is in this World Cup, and I feel like Greece is always the place, that or Turkey, where they have like the stands collapse. Is that architecture, which you'd think the Greek would be good at architecture because they've been doing it for longer than anyone, or is that their fans?
It's probably a little bit of logistics, like little bits of issues with the buildings of the stadiums. Brazil has had some stadiums standing for a long time, so I don't think there should be an issue with collapsing. Although some of the stadiums might not be 100% complete.
I was going to say, we don't. I don't say this in jest at all, but we really don't want to speak too soon about how many people are going to be able to put in these stadiums safely yet, because there's a lot of word out there that these things aren't actually finished, or at least they haven't been tested for safety nearly to the point that they should be. So just a side note. Keep going, though.
No, I completely agree with that. That's a little bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Well, let's transition back to a lighter note and then finish up on one more topic here. Without South Africa, we are clear of the Vuvuzela for the 2014 World Cup.
Not in my house.
Oh, but thank God.
Well, just as
I actually
go
get mine. I've got it in the car.
Please don't. Please don't.
Please don't
I
do that.
speak for all of our followers that listen to us either religiously or haphazardly.
Please don't do that.
Say, please don't. I will, however, ask y'all for one more piece of advice for watching these games. What are some drinking games you can play to the FIFA World Cup?
Every time Ian Dark says magisterial, chug your beer. And that should happen about once a game that he's calling.
Well,
I feel like another one would be ESPN has a commentator named Derek Ray, who every time he uses more than a 4-syllable word, drink, and he does it multiple times a game. Other than that, I mean, there's not too much you can do. Maybe every time during the studio show that Michael Ballack and Alexi Lalas have an awkward exchange drink, which that seems to happen a lot in 2010.
You'll be very drunk.
What about flops? There are a lot of flops in soccer. If you drink for every flop, I figure it might be about the 60-minute mark before you're toast.
Yeah, alcohol poisoning is not a good thing, Chad.
No, not at all.
It is not at all. It is not at all.
Also, while you're on that subject, Chad, we really ought to address this for the casual soccer fan out there. You're gonna see flops. You're gonna see a lot of them because in the World Cup, refs are much more apt to call penalties, and strikers want to try to bait them to call them. I just need you guys to think about the idea of a last-minute touchdown pass into the end zone and a wide receiver going for the ball, but at the same time, if he can't catch it and he knows he can't get to the ball, his one job is to act like the defensive back just shot him in the back, right? Like his job is to fake pass interference as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly, like Ohio State did against Miami in 2001.
Absolutely. That is exactly what we're talking about here. And do we like it? No, we freaking hate it. But at the same time, football fans, we understand why they do it. It's the exact same thing in soccer. Now, another thing, I think drinking during flops is a great idea, Chad. Also, a game that I found online somewhere is that you make up nicknames for all the World Cup teams that you're going to be watching, and you're forced to refer to them by that nickname throughout the entire game. I think they're great, jingoistic, and offensive and fun things to say around just your friends, but don't do it in public. But there's a lot of fun names you could come up with for all the other teams out there that you have to say. There would be a lot. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Oh man, well, I'm actually kind of more excited about the World Cup. That's all we have for this episode of Soccer Podcast for Americans. But check us back. We're going to try to hit you with one more before the World Cup starts. That is actually going to start out like this one started, with a whole lot of soccer analysis. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening. Jason, thanks for coming by. Thanks for taking time out of your vacation. Jason is a Smith on the Twitters.
Yes.
Sam, same thing. Sam J. Franco on Twitter. He will be tweeting a lot about soccer if I know Sam. And I'm Chad_Floyd. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to the DudeYouPodcast. As promised, we have 2 soccer episodes this week, and Jason Smith is just giddy about it.
I'm amped beyond words, Chad. Beyond words.
Well, excellent. We have the same crew from the last one, so you might actually have some familiarity. I'm going to sit back and not say a word for this one. I'm going to get educated. My name is Chad Floyd. We have Jason Smith. Jason is a Smith. Writes a lot for DudeYouCrazy.net and is our resident soccer expert. And then also joining us from beautiful Athens, Georgia, we have Sam Franco. Sam, I'm going to switch it to you first. What's good?
Same stuff, different day. Just amped up for the World Cup. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the tournament, unfortunately and fortunately, I'll be at the Bonnaroo Music Festival, and they actually have a really nice setup where I'll be able to watch the games on a nice big screen at one of the stages. And then when the games are done at night, they turn that into a DJ stage. So, it all works out for the better. But I'm really pumped for it. The World Cup's going to be awesome. I've got 2 teams in it. Once again, my dad's from Ecuador, so I've got Ecuador and the United States. Unfortunately, in 2010, Ecuador didn't make it, so my whole hopes are riding on Team USA. But at least this time I've got something to fall back on if the U.S. Fails to impress.
I just want to note that neither me nor Chad feel very sorry for Sam for having to miss the first game of the World Cup by being in Bonnaroo and getting to watch it on a stage that will one day become a DJ stage.
The only thing that could improve that is if the games were in South Africa again, you had a 12-hour time difference to where it was playing all night. I don't know. Would that be an advantage or a disadvantage? Because late-night DJs are also good.
It'd be the best if it was in South Korea, Japan again, because those games were on at like 2:30 and 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
You just rally all night long, go to concerts during the day and night, and then just walk over to the World Cup stage. That would be legit.
That's going to be pretty tough to beat. I'm going to actually be up in North Carolina watching the U.S. Open, so I'm going to have a nice little obscure sports weekend. Jason, what about yourself? What are your plans for the opening weekend?
I'll still be on vacation, so I will be either in midair or on the ground in Boston. So I'm going to Boston to experience Fenway Park this weekend. So it's odd that all 3 of us are having such incredible sports/music experiences during this World Cup season. But I'm going to try to catch some of the matchups we talked about in the last podcast. Most notably the opener, and then Spain and Holland, the Netherlands. And then I have basically just told my family, I can miss all the rest of the World Cup games, but you have to get me back in time for USA versus Ghana on Monday. Have to.
And for the casual fan, that is most of our following. When is US versus Ghana?
US versus Ghana is Monday at 6. So, and just be aware, casual fan out there, that if the US loses this game, there's a possibility they get out of the group. But pretty much, if they lose this game, we are blank. That is a very offensive word that I can't say on the podcast.
And when I was watching the friendly with Nigeria the other day, they said that it was essentially a must-win for the U.S. True or false, fellas?
True, completely true. I mean, you've got to get those 3 points because you have Portugal and Germany to follow, so there's no guarantee on points there. I think if you get the win versus Ghana and then eke out a draw versus Portugal, Germany will probably beat both Portugal and Ghana. So at that point, when you play them in the 3rd game of the group, Germany could be resting some guys, and you might be able to get a point off of them because they're not playing their full-strength squad.
Let's put this in SEC terms. Ghana is South Carolina to the U.S. men's national team's University of Georgia. If you don't beat South Carolina at the beginning of the year, you are not going to win the SEC, or it's going to take people behind you that are probably better than you screwing up. Okay, so it takes Florida or Tennessee or Alabama or LSU messing with the program for you to get to Atlanta. If the U.S. does not take care of business early, they ain't getting out of the group.
And I love it when people put it in football terms for me. In that case, it would be fairly obvious to state that Germany and Portugal would be the Alabama and LSU of the last 5 years, yes?
Absolutely.
I'd probably compare Portugal more to Auburn. They're not as super dominant as LSU would be, but they've got the tendency to be good every so often. So maybe not necessarily LSU. I think Auburn probably more apt comparison for Portugal.
Okay, so fellas, answer me this. How does the United States get out of Group G then? Obviously they have to beat Ghana, but more specifically down to personnel and strategy. What's the USMNT, which I always think are the Mutant Ninja Turtles whenever I see it on Twitter. What are we going to have to do to get out of this group?
Well, here's my 2 cents on this. They've been experimenting with their formation during these warm-up friendlies for the World Cup. For the first 2 against Azerbaijan and Turkey, they played a 4-4-2 with a diamond midfield where you've got a holding midfielder right in front of the defenders and an attacking midfielder right behind the strikers, and then 2 wing players. I think they were testing that because they want to play a more attacking formation against Ghana so you can go after it and get those 3 points. But then against Nigeria, I think they played the formation that they're probably going to be playing against Portugal and Germany, your 4-2-3-1, where you've got your 4 defenders, 2 holding midfielders right in front of those defenders, and then you've got 2 wing players out wide, your striker and Josie Altidore up top, and then a attacking midfielder right in behind him. So I think that in terms of strategy and formation, you want to try and be more attack-minded against Ghana to go out and get the victory. Not just the victory, but you also want to get as many goals as possible to help your goal differential in case something works out to where you end up tied with somebody on points after the 3 games, but you have scored more goals, and that allows you to advance on to the next round. So if you're going to beat Ghana and hope for maybe some other results there, you want to beat them by as many goals as possible. So you need to go in and play an attack-minded game. So that's why maybe the 4-4-2 with the diamond midfield works better there. But you need to be more defensive against Portugal and Germany because you cannot get caught on the counterattack because those teams will make you pay.
Yeah. Basically, what we're talking about here to get it out of even I'm going to say the same thing, exactly what Sam just said, but I'm going to say it without saying diamond formation and 4-4-2 and say it in terms of like people's names. You want to beat Ghana. You want Jermaine Jones and Michael Bradley and Kyle Beckerman all on the field at the same time because they are the anchors of this team that are going to create goal-scoring opportunities. Okay. The thing that you want versus basically, and you want 3 points out of a win on Ghana, and I'm with Sam, you not only want to beat the crap out of Ghana because it's going to help you win the World Cup, you want to do it because it's going to feel so freaking good that none of us are going to be able to walk the next morning because of how hungover we are from being drunk off the glory of beating Ghana.
It's payback time!
I told my friend, I have a friend who went to Ghana on some mission work through his church, and he was like, I'm going to root for Ghana. And I told him, I can't be in the same room with you, number 1. Number 2, I hope that we beat your team by like 80 goals, and I would trade that for getting out of the group. If we could beat Ghana by like 10 goals, I would be okay not getting out of the group. But then, all right, so let's go back and just talk about how to get out of Group G. You beat Ghana, you get the 3 points. And the reason you want to go defensive and use those defensive formations that Sam was talking about is because you want to beat Germany and Portugal, but your main goal is to tie with Germany and Portugal. Now, American soccer fans, I know, and football fans, I know how that sounds to you, tying. But let me just tell you, you get 1 point for tying, and if you can hold, that is the easiest way to get to the stage where you can't tie anymore, okay? You want to tie with Germany and Portugal and to get that many points from both of them. If we tie Germany and Portugal, the United States not only is going to get out of this group, they have a chance to win this group. And that would be an outstanding achievement in itself.
Well, keep in mind, USA won their group last World Cup, kind of on the same merits. You tied England in your opening game, you tied Slovenia in your second game, and then you were able to get the win against Algeria on the 90th minute on Landon Donovan, which was basically my greatest moment ever watching soccer. Cried like a little baby, hugging one of my friends, like jumping up and down like we were 6-year-old boys. But, it's just one of those things where you need to go in with a certain mentality. And I think, Klinsmann unfortunately said some things he probably shouldn't have in terms of a U.S. fan base when he said, we're not going to win the World Cup. If you can think that, and that's fine. I don't think any, diehard soccer fan thinks the USA is winning the World Cup. Your goal needs to be to get out of the group. And that's what Klinsmann said. But for the casual fans, that's going to turn a lot of people off. It's like, what, we're not going to win? Why are we even playing the tournament then?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But look, I think the main cog in USA's wheel has got to be Josie Altidore. And the way he came through against Nigeria with those 2 goals, you've got to hope that opened the floodgates. Because if he can play and he can score goals, then the United States is a formidable opponent for anybody.
And to the point of Klinsmann kind of turning off the casual fan, A, do y'all agree with the exclusion of Landon Donovan from this team? And B, what does it mean for US's chances? Why did Klinsman leave him off the team? Sam, you sounded like you had an opinion.
Yeah, I'll let Sam go first.
Yeah, I'll take this one. I do not agree with the exclusion of Landon Donovan. You can't tell me that there, and this is a dumb way to say it, but you can't tell me there are 23 better players than Landon Donovan. And a lot of people are saying that, but that's not what it's about. Because obviously Landon Donovan's not playing defense, so he's not going to take any of those spots. I'll say it like this. You can't tell me that Chris Wondolowski or Brad Davis were better selections for the U.S. national team than Landon Donovan would have been. The only reason Brad Davis made the team is because he can take left-footed set pieces. That's it. That's the only reason he's on the squad. Chris Wondolowski has scored goals in droves in the MLS, but he has no World Cup experience, and you can't tell me, because Wondolowski probably won't even play unless of an injury or something like that, because I think a late attacking substitution is probably going to be Julian Green, A, to get him World Cup minutes, and B, because he's way more threatening than Wondolowski is. Wondolowski had his opportunities against Azerbaijan, against Turkey. He had two headers that were both should have been put away that he didn't put away. So I think that was something that Klinsman probably saw. But Wondolowski just doesn't have the experience, and you can't tell me that Landon Donovan wouldn't be a great super sub on this team. Obviously I don't think he would have started. But coming off of the bench, a guy that has the instincts, the nose for goal, that has just ice water running through his veins when he's on the field, that's what Landon Donovan provides. I mean, just go back to that goal he scored against Algeria in 2010. Just running down the field, taking the long throw from Tim Howard, the pass that he makes to Josie Altidore, then cuts back in for when Dempsey makes a shot to be in the good position to put home the rebound. Donovan knows where to be on the field. So I think it was a vast oversight. And to get to the reason that Klinsman left him off, there's beef. There's some sort of personal issue there. I don't know what it is. Alexei Lalex explained it very well. He said that it might not be that Klinsman doesn't like Donovan. It's that he doesn't understand him, because Klinsman never would have taken any sabbatical like Landon Donovan did away from soccer. Klinsman was just always trying to get better on the field and always trying as a player, and he was always trying to find that next thing that would make him better. Landon Donovan needed a break. He had carried the weight of U.S. soccer's ambitions for 10-plus years. He got a break. He came back. He played great when he came back, and he's created more chances for USA than anyone since the beginning of calendar year 2013. So you can't tell me that leaving him home was a good idea. I will never believe that.
And just to clarify, Donovan was taking his sabbatical when Klinsman was hired as the U.S. coach, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I remember there being a piece where Donovan was trying to earn his keep back, and they talked about that on ESPN for like 2 seconds before they went to other just random jabbering, which they tend to do. So for you to say there's beef, that kind of explains it to me. But yeah, that being said, bring a guy off the bench for the last 10 minutes, and if it's in a tie game, it goes to extra time. Isn't that worth having a guy who could provide instant offense on the roster? Jason, I'll turn that to you.
I agree with that in that I think he would have been a great sub. This question to me is always so tough to answer, because if I'm looking at it from a 23-man stance, of course I want to put Landon Donovan on a 23 roster. Obviously. It's not even a question. I think that what Jurgen is doing, I think what Jurgen is doing is something that I don't understand, and I can't tell you what he's doing. It's a lot like when Harry Doyle is in Major League 2 is like, obviously we're putting in Ricky Vaughn. Obviously Taylor's thinking, I don't know what the hell he's thinking, right? I have no idea what Jurgen Klinsman is doing. But you know what I do? I trust Jurgen Klinsman, and I trust him because I trust him because he's made American soccer into a team that goes and beats Nigeria 2-1 before a World Cup and does it looking very comfortably.
Here's a great thing about what you just said there. When under Bruce Arena or Bob Bradley was the USA running 1-2s with their right fullback and their central holding midfielder to score goals, like the one Fabian Johnson scored against Turkey.
Or when did we ever develop a player in the way that we've developed Fabian Johnson? You know, like
Right.
Johnson has sort of like come out of nowhere, but in reality, I think this has been Jurgen Klinsmann saw a guy that I personally I thought, when I first saw the roster, I thought, what the hell is Fabian Johnson doing in there? And then when he started starting at right back, I thought, well, I remember Clarence Goodson being very good, and Jeff Cameron's very good, but I don't know who the heck this guy is. And then Clarence Goodson was left off, and Fabian Johnson was included. And then he started starting every send-off series, and then all of a sudden this guy became an absolute just gunner. Like, he was an exceptional player. And little bits of things like that. And also the not-so-small feat of attracting Julian Green, who would have not played for America otherwise. That earns Klinsmann my trust, at least for the next World Cup and for the end of his extension, you know? And trust me, if there was ever going to be a litmus test of whether or not you should trust a guy's roster selections, it's going to be this group. Because, by God, if you were ever going to have a group in which you need a guy like Landon Donovan coming off the bench, it's this group. And if the U.S. can't find that offensive answer in the 70th minute, 80th minute when they need a goal, and you bring on Julian Green, and I think, disagreeing with Sam, I think he's going to bring on Wondolowski in the World Cup. The only reason I think that is because Klinsmann is a creature of habit, and he's done it in every send-off series game. I think you see Chris Wondolowski in the World Cup game.
He's just not quality, though. He's not quality, in my opinion, to be in World Cup games. When you have Landon Donovan, who has scored more World Cup goals than Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Robin van Persie combined.
And let's just do this then, Sam. I will buy you multiple beers in a bar someday that Chris Wondolowski will score a goal in Brazil. It's going to happen. And when it happens, I'm going to lose my damn mind, but I'm just letting you know.
On that. I don't think he scores.
Beer bet, Wando is going to score.
Okay.
Heard it here, folks. Wondolowski will score a goal in Brazil. Computer handshake.
Me and however many soccer fans exist on Dude You Crazy are your witnesses. That just happened, guys. So let's get down to brass tacks here. Who comes out of Group G? Is the U.S. one of those two teams?
Yes. I'm going to say yes. I think that there's some funky mojo going on in the Germany camp right now. They had a player arrested for urinating in a hotel lobby. So they've had some interesting things.
Do we blame the guy? Do we blame the Ghanaian voodoo guy for that?
No, I think you blame the alcohol for that. But no, seriously, I do think there are some issues in the Germany camp. Yogi Löw, their coach, has had some issues with that team's chemistry. And Marco Reus is out of the World Cup. That was one of their 2 or 3 most important players. So they still have a lot of quality, and they'll be fine. But I think that Portugal is probably the team that USA is going to be gunning for. If Ronaldo isn't healthy, that team is not better than USA. They have good players in Pepe and Nani, who doesn't even get off the bench for Manchester United nowadays for some reason. But I think it's USA and Germany that get out of this group.
I don't think we're making it out of the group, Chad. Sorry. I really don't. I want us to make you know that I want us to make it out of the group, and I think if we do make it out of the group, we have a good chance to beat whoever's coming out of Group H. I think the U.S. could easily beat Ghana. And then I think what will probably happen is the U.S. will manage to beat Ghana, which will make me very happy. But I don't think they're going to be able to hold off Cristiano Ronaldo. And then I think the Germans, even with trouble in the camp, are better than the Americans right now. There will probably come a day when that's not true. But for right now, that is true. And so I think the U.S. is going to go down probably just with 3 points, and that Portugal and Germany make it out of the group.
Okay, so just across the whole field, I want to hear one dark horse from each of you, and then we're going to jump into picks, and we're going to see where y'all go with this, because I don't know how to make picks on this. I know A1 plays B2, B2 plays A1, whatever. I'm not the expert here. That's why I'm facilitating. So, Jason, throw it right back to you. One dark horse in this World Cup tournament.
Okay, well, to talk about how to make picks, first off, I highly recommend if you want to try your hand at sort of predicting the World Cup, go to ESPN or any other site out there that has a bracket predictor game because it will help you so much to see it in front of you, and to see who goes to where in the bracket, because otherwise you really are thinking, okay, who was A1, who was C1, that kind of thing. My dark horse of this year is the Ivory Coast. I think Ivory Coast is supposed to have been good for so many years, and I mentioned Yaya Toure in last podcast. I really think Ivory Coast, and Sam will laugh a little bit at this, or maybe Sam's thinking the same thing. I think the Ivory Coast is going to go to the semifinal. I really do. I think the Ivory Coast puts it together finally, and will really flourish with the draw that they've got this year, and I think they're going to make it to the semifinal. That's my dark horse. Another team that's not really a dark horse, and sorry, Sam, I'm going to pick two, and you can take two as well, and hopefully I don't steal yours. Be on the lookout for France, okay? No. France could easily implode. They could easily do the thing they do every year, but that lineup is loaded.
No Franck Ribéry, though. That's
no Franck Ribéry. But I'll tell you this: when that story came out, and I'm a little more than a casual soccer fan. I knew of Franck Ribéry, but I did not consider him France's biggest star. Olivier Giroud is their biggest star, and then the up and coming rising star for them is Yohan Cabaye. Both those guys are healthy. Both those guys are dangerous, and their group is the easiest group in the World Cup. France is going to get out of the group and probably have a real shot to make it to the semifinals as well.
And all those names sound so French, too.
They do.
Sam, who you got as a dark horse here?
First of all, let me say that France's group isn't the easiest because Ecuador will beat France. Mark it 0, dude.
Are we doing another? Is this another bet?
Beat France. I promise you. Ecuador looked extremely dangerous against England the other day in their friendly, and they took out Oxlade-Chamberlain. So Ecuador has taken out 2 World Cup players. They took out Montez for Mexico, and they took out Oxlade-Chamberlain for England. So unfortunately, you do not want to play Ecuador because they're going to take out one of your stars. But in terms of a dark horse for the tournament, if I'm going to Belgium, I don't know if I could call them a dark horse because they're ranked so high and they're so good, but people just aren't giving them any respect. So I'll go Belgium. They have an unbelievable attacking lineup. I talked about it a little bit in the last podcast with Eden Hazard from Chelsea. They've got Romelu Lukaku, who is a striker also for Chelsea, but he was loaned out to Everton this year, played really well in the English Premier League. Their goalie, Courtois, he was also a Chelsea player who was playing for Atletico Madrid this season, and he had an unbelievable year for them. And they have Vincent Kompany in the defense. So they've got world-class players all over the field. They do have Marwan Fellaini, who plays for Manchester United, who I wish didn't play for Manchester United. But he's a solid player at times. So I think that Belgium is probably one for me. And since they've already won a World Cup, I don't think I can go with Uruguay being a dark horse. But that's a team that you've got to look out for as well. But, I'll go if I'm going dark horse here, I'll probably Ivory Coast was a good one. France wasn't bad. But, I'm going to go England. I know that they've also won a World Cup before, but this team does not have the same expectations as English teams have had in the past. And that's usually been a big issue because all the England fans used to think, oh, well, we're definitely have a shot to win the World Cup. I don't think any England fan thinks they have that shot this time around.
No, not this year.
So I think that, they've got a lot of young players. If Roy Hodgson, their manager, plays the young players, do not start the midfield combination of Lampard and Gerrard because it doesn't work. I think Roy Hodgson could have a dangerous team, although Wayne Rooney has been hit or miss. So, and
you mentioned this in the last podcast, Sam, but for the love of God, Roy Hodgson has to start has to put Raheem Sterling on the field eventually.
Yeah.
And especially with Steven Gerrard, because if you look at the way Liverpool played with those two guys in the midfield, they were unstoppable at scoring goals. And, I don't see any reason why you would think that Lampard – honestly, I don't see why Raheem Sterling isn't starting.
All right, here, let me run down my England starting 11 real quick and see what you think of this.
Okay, we'll do this quick.
Okay, no, it's quick. It'd be Rooney and Sturridge up top, and then you'd have Raheem Sterling on one wing, Barkley and Gerrard in the midfield, kind of in a diamond with Gerrard dropped back holding with Barkley up top.
I like it.
I don't know, I would have said Ox out left, but they don't have him anymore, so some other pacey winger out left. and I'll just leave the defense alone. But I think that could be a pretty potent England attack.
Oh, yeah. Like, I think with Sturridge and Rooney up top with Raheem Sterling feeding them the ball, I think that, and Gerrard in the middle, like, there's no way you're going to not score goals.
Exactly.
I don't know why that's not already the starting lineup. Me and Sam picking the starting lineup for England. Roy Hodgson, if you're listening, you're welcome. Please use that at your discretion.
Don't overthink it.
Well, to be fair, while we were recording the Weekly Hangover on Saturday, Lane Kiffin followed Andrew Hall on Twitter. So there is precedent for coaches to follow based on the Dude You podcast. Fellas, this guy is about to fall out of Atlanta all of a sudden, and I'm fearing for a very weak power grid in Uptown Buckhead in Atlanta, Georgia. So real quick, I want to hear y'all's semifinal and final picks, and I would even say this has been kind of fun. We might have to jump back on this after the group stage at some point.
I might get 3 World Cup podcasts. That would be the accomplishment of it.
So, well then, Mr. Triple Podcast, Jason, I want your semifinalists, your finalists, and we'll save the champion for the end.
All right, I got you. My semifinal on the left side, I have the Germans pulling it together and getting into the semifinal. And they will face off against Brazil. And then on the right side, and then on the right side, yes, kids, Spain goes down to Ivory Coast. And Ivory Coast makes the semifinal. Coming out of the bottom bracket will be Argentina.
Yeah, I'm going to go chalk. I mean, I like Spain. I like Argentina on that side. And then I like Brazil and Germany on the other side. I mean, I picked Germany to win before the tournament. I don't know if I'll stay with that, but I think those 4 teams are going to be your semifinalists.
Well, I know as somebody who does not claim to be a soccer fan, Brazil-Germany would intrigue me, so I'm all about that. That being said, since both of y'all have it, who's winning that game?
I think Germany are dream killers. Like I think this is the exact. Let's be real. The only team on earth, I think, that could go into that game and not give a damn that they're playing Brazil in Brazil and still come out and just ice coldly win that game is Germany. And I think Germany would win that game. If they played it tomorrow, I think Brazil would be so caught up in the moment, so caught up in Neymar ascending to Pele's throne, so caught up in being in the Maracana again and trying to vanquish the ghost of 1950 where they should have beaten Uruguay, but they lost on a last-minute goal to lose the World Cup. I think that big thing is just a great thing for Germans to capitalize on. I think the Germans make the final on penalties.
This Brazil team is good, not great. I feel like they've got a lot of issues kind of in the defense, and I also feel like the midfield isn't as solid as it's been in the past. I'm also going to pick Germany to win that game. I think this German team is one of the most talented teams they've had in the last 20 years. Top to bottom, this roster is extremely loaded, even without Marco Reus, who is a big loss for them. There's no question about it. But I still think this German team, top to bottom, is just unbelievably loaded.
So then from the other side, if y'all both have Germany in the finals, who is Germany going to face off with in Rio de Janeiro for the 2014 World Cup?
I'm going all in on Ivory Coast, Chad. I'm believing. Yes. I'm believing. I want this World Cup to be fun.
Côte d'Ivoire.
An African nation has never made it to a World Cup final, and I think Spain is overranked because they're coming off being the World Cup winners. I don't think that roster is going to come together as well as it should have, as it did in the last World Cup. I think Argentina are going to be lethargic. I think they're going to score a ton of goals, but I don't think they're going to really play anybody until the round of 16. And when they do, probably the toughest test they're going to have is Portugal, who I think we're all saying is great, but they're not as formidable as you might get if you had to play Spain to make it to the World Cup final. I think Ivory Coast catches them sleeping, and I think Ivory Coast makes it to the World Cup final.
I love it. Franco, you went chalk here. That might, I'd say that's the smarter move.
Yeah.
That being said, I already prefer Jason's pick, but go ahead and lay it on me here.
Well, I appreciate that. It puts a lot of pressure on me here. I think Spain could win. I don't think they will. I think Germany is a team that is just so strong that they'll be able to get over the climate. Spain, not so much. I feel like they're a little more what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of fancy, you know, not flashy.
Bit
They're
temperamental.
not as, they don't have as much substance, you know. Like Germany is real tough and gritty. You don't get that with Spain.
So
I think Argentina will win mainly based on the fact that they're used to playing in these hot, just miserable, sticky climates. So I guess my final is Germany and Argentina.
okay, and I mean the Germans. We've always known that they were heartless bastards. Anyway, you know we've known that for just a little over 100 years now. So none of this surprises me. Real quick, let's wrap it up. Sam, Germany or Argentina in the finals?
Die Mannschaft, I think Germany gets it done. Germany becomes the first European team to win a World Cup on South American soil.
I like it. And Mr. Smith, what we got?
I'm all in with Ivory Coast. They're gonna win the World Cup. Mark it down. I said Germany in my Dude You Crazy column. I'm taking it back. Ivory Coast is gonna win the World Cup.
Hey,
saying Yaya Toure or
play with on FIFA, so I'm all about it.
Yaya Toure scores like 80 goals. But in all honesty, yeah, I think what will happen is that if say that something like this, say that Ivory Coast actually does make the World Cup final, okay? I think that even if I'm wrong and Argentina makes the World Cup final, I think whoever comes out of that right side of the bracket is going to win over Germany. And the only reason I think that is because the German win over Brazil will cause such a landfall and will be such a huge thing to get done. It's going to be a major letdown in much the same way that, like, you know, if I'm trying to think of like a March Madness where like the Final Four matchup was better than what you were going to face in the final.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got to the final, you weren't ready for the quality you were going to face on the other side. That's the only reason I can see Germany being suspect after beating Brazil and causing the huge emotional landfall that it will cause. I think that Germany would go down to whoever's on the right side, and for me, that just so happens to be Ivory Coast.
So basically, you think Germany's due for a letdown game after they knock off the favorites?
Yeah, that's exactly. That's my thought.
All right, well, I'm just going to leave it on this because I intentionally did absolutely no talking because I don't need to sound like an idiot on this podcast. United States has never won a World Cup, but they're back-to-back World War champions. Fellas, this has been an absolute blast. Y'all can find Sam Franco on Twitter at Sam J. Franco, Jason Smith at Jason is a Smith. Fellas, to the both of you, I would say very safe travels this week. Y'all both have pretty immaculate plans, so I'm almost jealous, even though I've also got a pretty nice little weekend set up. Any closing thoughts?
You know, it's the World Cup. It only happens every 4 years. Just watch and enjoy, and make sure you have plenty of your favorite frosty cold beverages on hand.
My final thought would be, if you're a Twitter hater of soccer, shut up and go away for the next 3 weeks.
Agreed.
No one cares that you don't like soccer. We do. Shut up. Go drink on your own. We're going to be drinking with like millions and millions of people watching the World Cup, and it's it's probably, if not the greatest sporting event on the planet, it's one of the greatest.
Oh, no doubt.
We don't care that you don't like soccer.
I don't think you can top it any better than that. Twitter haters are the worst in any sport.
Indeed.
Gentlemen, it's been fun. Let's do it again for the knockout rounds.
The trifecta.
Excellent. Y'all have a good one, fellas.